The galaxy had been quiet for only a few months, but it felt like an eternity. After decades of war, the alien civilizations had finally agreed to a fragile truce. The battles that once shook planets, tearing cities apart and leaving oceans of fire had ended, or so everyone believed. For the first time in generations, peace seemed real. Flags of many colors waved across the capital worlds, and streets were filled with laughter and celebration. Trade routes reopened, merchants carried goods from one planet to another, and children played without fear of sirens or alarms. In the heart of the galaxy, on the bustling trade planet of Korath, celebrations were at their peak. Aliens of all shapes and sizes shared stories, exchanged gifts, and toasted to a future free from the horrors of war. The city's enormous towers gleamed under the twin suns, and holographic displays flashed messages of unity and hope. Leaders spoke on enormous platforms, promising a new era of cooperation. "The war is over," they repeated, their voices proud and relieved. Finally, the galaxy can breathe. Yet in the shadows, far from the lights and music, not everyone was celebrating. On the outskirts of Korath, a small research outpost perched on the edge of a rocky plateau. Its metal walls were cold and gray, a stark contrast to the colorful festivities in the city below. Within the outpost, quiet whispers carried over the hum of machines. Scouting teams spoke of strange events. Equipment that had been abandoned for years suddenly powered on. Communications that should have been dead flickered to life with coded messages. Alien patrols sent to investigate sometimes never returned, their ships found empty and drifting in space. Most dismissed these signs as coincidences or glitches. After all, the humans, the mysterious species that had once fought alongside and against them, were long gone. Many believed humans were extinct. Their fleets had disappeared without a trace, their colonies abandoned. Stories of their bravery and cruelty alike were now part of legend. Most aliens thought of humans as a memory, a chapter closed in the galaxy's history, but rumors persisted, and sometimes rumors were dangerous. On a quiet ridge overlooking the city, an alien patrol scanned the horizon with glowing sensors. Lieutenant Dravik, a tall insectoid creature with 4 eyes and thin wings folded neatly behind him, frowned as he examined the readings. "Sensors are picking up movement," he said, his voice tense. "But the area is empty. How is this possible?" "Perhaps it is just a trick of the wind," replied another patrol member, a shorter reptilian alien named Zyra. She tapped her claw against the metal rail. "The humans are gone. There is no one left here. You know that." Dravik shook his head. "Maybe we think they are gone. Maybe we are wrong." Zyra's eyes narrowed. "You have been watching old human battles too closely. They are gone, Lieutenant. Focus on the celebration. Focus on peace." Dravik did not answer. He had learned long ago that sometimes instinct spoke louder than reason. And something in the air felt wrong. Far away in the shadowed corridors of an abandoned space station, Kyle moved silently. His presence was a whisper, a shadow between shadows. He had survived the war when so many others had fallen. While the galaxy celebrated, he had watched. Hidden from view, he had learned, adapted, mastered technology that the aliens believed only they could control. Kyle was alone, but he was not powerless. He watched the messages that passed through galactic channels unnoticed. He studied alien fleets, memorized their tactics, and discovered weaknesses in ships that were said to be invincible. Kale knew the galaxy believed humans were weak, that they had disappeared because they could not survive the alien empires. But Kale knew differently. Humans did not vanish because they were weak. They vanished because they were clever, adaptable, and patient. Tonight, Kale prepared to move. The patrols on Korath's outskirts would not expect him. The city below was alive with celebration, its leaders proclaiming peace. He moved like a ghost, his boots silent on the metal catwalk. Every sensor, every camera, every patrol had a blind spot, and Kale knew them all. He was not just a survivor. He was a shadow of humanity's cleverness, a reminder that the past was not as dead as the aliens believed. On the planet below, celebrations continued. Children raced through streets chasing floating orbs of light. Merchants called out their prices, offering spices, crystals, and exotic foods from distant worlds. Citizens of countless species danced together, waving banners and singing songs of hope. Even in a galaxy scarred by war, life could flourish. It was beautiful, fragile, and dangerously unaware. Back at the outpost, Lieutenant Dravik and Zira discovered another empty patrol ship, its hull cracked and frozen in the cold of space. There were no signs of struggle, no bodies, just the ship drifting silently, lights flickering. Dravik felt a chill run through him. "This is not a coincidence," he said quietly. "Something is out there. Something alive." Zira's tail twitched nervously. "You're imagining things. The humans are gone. Nothing alive could do this, but Dravik knew better. His instincts had never failed him before. "We will investigate," he said. "Carefully. Do not underestimate what we do not understand." Meanwhile, Kale reached the edge of the outpost. He paused, scanning the city below. He could see the lights, the laughter, the confidence of the aliens who thought the war was over. A small smile crossed his face. They did not know. They had forgotten. And that gave him the advantage. He activated a small device on his wrist. It sent a pulse, small and undetectable by the city's sensors. A few moments later, subtle disruptions began to appear. A communication relay misfired. A supply transport veered off course. A patrol drone briefly disappeared from view before reappearing miles away. These were minor disturbances barely noticed, but they were enough to remind the galaxy that the humans were not gone. Kale moved deeper into the shadows, disappearing entirely from sight. His mind raced with possibilities. He did not seek war, not yet. He sought observation, knowledge, and preparation. But if the aliens continued to underestimate humanity, they would learn a lesson far more dangerous than small, unnoticed disturbances. As the night deepened, Kyle paused on a high ridge looking at the twin moons of Korath. "They celebrate peace," he whispered to himself. "They think the war is over. But humans are patient, and humans are clever." Below, in the city, a young alien child pointed to the sky and asked, "Mother, what is that?" "Nothing, my child," the mother replied, her voice calm. "Just a shadow in the night." Kale smiled faintly, unseen and unheard. Shadows were his home. Shadows were his ally. And soon, shadows would remind the galaxy of what it had forgotten, the power of humanity. The war was over, for now. But not for long. Somewhere in the galaxy, a human had stepped out of the darkness, watching, waiting, preparing, and the aliens who celebrated today would soon realize that the past never truly dies. Kyle vanished into the night, leaving no trace but a faint pulse of warning in the systems around him. It was small, subtle, perfect. A message to the galaxy. They thought the war was over, until a human stepped out of the shadows. The galaxy believed peace had returned. Celebration and relief filled countless planets, and the leaders of alien civilizations trusted that their enemies, the humans, were gone. But they were wrong. Humanity was not gone, not completely, and one human, alone yet unstoppable in his cunning, had begun to step from the shadows. Kale had spent months moving quietly, learning everything he could about the alien civilizations that had once fought him and his kind. He had watched fleets move across space, memorized patrol routes, and studied the habits of countless alien leaders. He knew that the galaxy considered humans extinct, and he used that belief to his advantage. Tonight, Kale prepared for his first deliberate mission. He did not seek destruction. He sought observation and influence. If he could prove that humans were not weak, that they were clever and adaptable, then the galaxy would begin to reconsider everything they believed. On the planet Lorvath, a major trade hub near the edge of the galactic corridor, a convoy of alien cargo ships was preparing to depart. The fleet carried supplies for colonies and outposts, goods that were essential to the economy. Kale had watched these convoys for weeks. He knew their routines, the blind spots in their security, and the timing of every patrol ship. As the convoy moved into orbit, Kale positioned himself in a nearby asteroid belt, invisible to the scanners of the aliens below. He activated a small device barely larger than his hand, which emitted a series of subtle pulses that interfered with communications. Lights flickered in the command centers of the convoy ships, but the operators assumed it was a minor glitch. Kale smiled. Small disruptions were enough to create confusion without causing real damage. He wanted the aliens to feel uncertainty, to realize that the humans they thought were gone could still influence events. Aboard the flagship, Captain Aren, a tall armored alien with sharp features and glowing green eyes, frowned at the sudden interference. Reports indicate minor system anomalies, Iran said, his voice tense. Sensors show no visible source. Communications are delayed. What is happening? A junior officer replied nervously. Perhaps it is a malfunction, Captain. The convoy systems are old. Nothing serious, I think. Iran shook his head. Perhaps. But be vigilant. If this is not a malfunction, we must be ready. Meanwhile, Kale observed the reactions with quiet satisfaction. The aliens' confidence was still strong, but cracks were beginning to form. They underestimated humans, and that was their greatest mistake. As the convoy passed through the asteroid belt, Kale made subtle adjustments to the trajectory of several small cargo pods. They veered slightly off course, enough to cause confusion but not enough to crash. Sensors aboard the convoy ships blared warnings. Crews rushed to respond, and for the first time, Kale could see fear, a small flickering light in their eyes. After the convoy passed safely, Kale withdrew to the shadows of a nearby asteroid. He allowed himself a brief moment of rest. He was alone, yes, but he was not powerless. Humanity's strength had never been in numbers alone. It had been in creativity, patience, and the willingness to adapt to any situation. He reviewed the data collected from the convoy, timing, reactions, communications, and personnel movements. Everything would be useful. Every mistake made by the aliens was an opportunity for learning. Every small victory built the foundation for the larger impact he planned to have. Back in the city on Lorvath, rumors began to spread among the lower ranks of the convoy crews. Small things. Supplies that went missing for a few minutes, minor glitches in communications, equipment that powered on and off unexpectedly. No one could explain it. Some laughed nervously, others worried quietly. Captain Iran convened a meeting of his officers. Something is interfering with our operations, he said firmly. I do not know what or who, but this is not coincidence. We must investigate. We cannot allow this to continue. The humans are gone, yes, but what if we have overlooked something? The word human struck the officers like a warning bell. Many of them had been told since childhood that humans were extinct. Now, even the thought that one might exist sent a chill through the room. Meanwhile, Kale was already several light hours away, moving silently between asteroid clusters. He had no desire to be captured. Humans were clever because they were careful, and he would not allow himself to become a statistic in alien records. Yet he was not merely hiding. He was preparing. Every observation, every interference was part of a larger plan, to remind the galaxy that humans were not weak, not gone, and not irrelevant. In the orbital laboratories of Lorvath, Dr. Ilyan, a scholar of alien history, noticed something unusual. Signals that had been dead for decades flickered to life. Old human codes, previously thought impossible to decipher, were appearing in isolated bursts. Ilyan's eyes widened in shock as he read the messages. Small, patient, watching. He ran to report his findings. Captain Yiran! You must see this. It is humans. They are active. We thought they were gone, but they are not. Iran's face hardened. Impossible, he said quietly, though a flicker of doubt crossed his features. We were told. We believed they were extinct. Belief does not make reality, Ilyan said firmly. We have ignored the possibility for too long. Humans may not seek open war yet, but they are clever. They are everywhere in the shadows. And if we do not act carefully, they will show us their true power. Iran's jaw tightened. Prepare a response quietly. We cannot cause panic, but we must understand who or what is behind this. Humans are clever, yes, but we must be cleverer. Kale watched all of this unfold from a distance. He had no desire to reveal himself just yet. Observation was his first weapon, knowledge his second, and only when the time was right would he step fully into the light. Yet he understood that even his small actions had begun to ripple through the galaxy. Aliens who thought peace was permanent were beginning to realize that the past was not as dead as they believed. That night, Kyle returned to his hidden base, a small station disguised among a field of meteors. He reviewed all the information he had gathered from Lorvath. Every movement, every reaction, every decision made by the aliens was noted. Every mistake was recorded. Humanity's strength had always been in learning, adapting, and planning. Now Kyle would prepare for the next phase of his work. Subtle, intelligent, unstoppable influence. He paused to look at the stars through a reinforced viewport. They think the war is over, he whispered. They do not know that humans never truly vanish. We adapt, we survive, and we wait, patiently. Elsewhere, in the council halls of the Galactic Alliance, debates raged over the minor disturbances reported by convoys. Some dismissed them as coincidence. Some believed Kale might be a single survivor, a relic of a forgotten age. But a few, wise and experienced in the ways of war, grew uneasy. Humans are gone, yes, said one alien, an elder with silver scales. But consider this, humans are not ordinary. Even a single human can be cleverer than an entire fleet. We cannot underestimate what we do not understand. His words hung in the air. The galaxy had celebrated peace too quickly. It had forgotten caution. It had assumed that extinction meant weakness. And that assumption was about to be challenged. Back in the shadows, Kale allowed himself a small smile. He was just one human, alone, hidden. But the galaxy would remember him. The galaxy would remember humans. And when it did, it would realize that survival was only the beginning, and that humanity's cleverness, patience, and courage could not be erased. No matter how much the universe wished it, Kale's first mission had been small, a disruption, an observation, a lesson. But it had worked. Aliens were uneasy. Patrols were cautious. Ships were suspicious of anomalies. And for the first time, whispers of the impossible began to spread. Humans were not extinct. Humans were watching. The shadows were his domain. The galaxy would learn to fear the quiet. And Kale, the hidden human, moved on to his next objective. A single thought guiding him forward. The war might be over for the galaxy. But for humans, it was only the beginning. The whispers started quietly, barely noticeable at first. A missing transport here, a malfunctioning communication there. But soon the pattern became undeniable. Across several systems, alien leaders noticed disruptions in their fleets and colonies. Ships drifted slightly off course. Patrols reported strange signals, and supply lines suffered minor but unnerving interruptions. In the central command of the Intergalactic Council, the tension was palpable. The Council had been celebrating peace for months, confident that humans were gone. Yet now even the most experienced members could not ignore the evidence. Councillor Virel, a tall, elegant alien with silver plumage and piercing blue eyes, stared at the holomap of recent incidents. "This is no coincidence," she said firmly. "These disruptions are deliberate. Someone is testing us, or warning us." A younger counselor spoke nervously, "But humans are extinct, Councillor Virel. There is no one left to challenge us." Virel's gaze did not waver. "Do not be so sure. Humans are clever. Even one of them could change the balance of the galaxy without ever showing themselves." Elsewhere, Kale moved through the outer systems with careful precision. He was invisible to most sensors, yet his influence was spreading like ripples on water. Each mission was deliberate, designed to be noticed only just enough to create uncertainty. No lives were lost. No destruction was permanent. But the aliens felt the tension. That was enough. On the mining world of Taris, a convoy of heavily armed ships experienced a strange anomaly. Sensors detected signals that should not exist, communications scrambled in unpredictable ways, and navigation systems flickered with sudden errors. The crew panicked, unsure of the cause. Lieutenant Dravik, who had begun tracking the human rumors, reviewed the reports with growing concern. "This is not random," he said, rubbing his 4 eyes in frustration. "Someone is deliberately interfering with our operations, and it can only be human." Zira, standing beside him, shivered. "But one human? How could a single being create such chaos?" "It is impossible," Dravik shook his head. "You underestimate the patience and cunning of humans. They survive where others fail. They think differently. This is their strength." Meanwhile, Kale observed the chaos from a hidden vantage point on an asteroid above Taris. He noted the reactions carefully. Panic and confusion were small, but they were growing. He smiled faintly. The galaxy had celebrated peace too quickly. The aliens had assumed extinction meant weakness. They had assumed that humans could be ignored. They were beginning to realize how wrong they were. In the council chambers, Virel convened an emergency meeting. Representatives from several star systems were present, all with expressions of unease. "This is unacceptable," Virel said, her voice firm. "We cannot allow these disturbances to continue. Whoever is responsible is clever, and we must be cleverer. Prepare reconnaissance missions, but proceed carefully. The human we face, if there is only one, must not be underestimated. Another counselor spoke up, voice trembling slightly. Counselor Virel, if it is a human, then our fleets are not enough. They can think, adapt, and outmaneuver us in ways we do not understand. Virel nodded. Exactly. That is why we must be patient and precise. The humans do not seek open war yet, but they are testing us, observing us, and we must not fail. Kyle, aware of the Council's attention, prepared for his next move. His plan was not reckless. Each action was calculated, intended to show the aliens that humans could not be predicted, controlled, or ignored. He had no desire to cause destruction unnecessarily. He wanted influence, knowledge, and understanding. But he would not hesitate to use strategy to protect himself or humanity if needed. He targeted a small military base on the outer rim of the Andari system. The base had been upgraded recently with the latest defensive technology, and its command structure relied heavily on automated systems. Kale had studied these systems for weeks. He knew their routines, their blind spots, and the timing of patrol shifts. At precisely the right moment, Kale activated a series of pulses from a device hidden in the asteroid field nearby. These pulses disrupted communications just enough to confuse the base's sensors. Automated defense drones hesitated, some turning on their own allies briefly before correcting themselves. Officers argued over the anomalies, trying to locate a source that did not exist. From his vantage point, Kyle watched carefully. Every reaction, every mistake was recorded and analyzed. The aliens were clever, but even they were not perfect. And that imperfection, humanity could exploit it without ever showing their full strength. On the bridge of the Andari base, Commander Rethal scowled. Sensors are malfunctioning again. Reports from multiple sectors are conflicting. What is happening? His second-in-command replied, Sir, it is unclear. No enemy presence is detected. It may be a systems error or perhaps something else. Rethal's eyes narrowed. Something else? What could be capable of this? Humans? The word struck fear in the room. Many officers had been trained to believe humans were extinct. Now the idea that a single human could influence a fully automated base was terrifying. They realized how little they understood the species they had once fought, and believed they had defeated. Meanwhile, Kyle retreated silently into the asteroid field, leaving no trace of his presence. The base returned to normal operations after a tense few hours, but the fear remained. Officers whispered of a human genius, a ghost capable of striking without warning, never leaving evidence, and always staying one step ahead. In the council, Virel received reports from all affected systems. Her eyes narrowed as she read each one carefully. She realized that this was no isolated incident. Kale's influence was spreading across multiple sectors, demonstrating human cleverness in ways no alien had predicted. We are dealing with a strategist, Virel said quietly. Not just a survivor, but a mind unlike any we have encountered before. This is unsettling, her advisors murmured agreement. If this is one human, said one elder, then the stories of their ingenuity were not exaggerations. We underestimated them at our peril. Elsewhere, Kale reviewed the Council's reports through hidden communications he had intercepted. He smiled faintly. They were learning, slowly, but they were learning. The galaxy had celebrated peace too soon. It had assumed humans could be ignored. Now, every fleet commander, every counselor, every officer who had dismissed the possibility of human survival would begin to feel the ripple of fear. Kale paused, considering his next move. His influence was spreading, and the aliens were beginning to see what he wanted them to see. Humans were clever, patient, and adaptable. But he also knew he could not act recklessly. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and he could be discovered. Observation and subtle influence would remain his tools. As he moved to his next hidden location, Kale reflected on the lessons of his species. Humans had survived countless threats, adapted to harsh environments, and thrived against impossible odds. They were not the strongest physically nor the largest in number, but they were clever, resourceful, and unyielding. The galaxy had believed that extinction meant weakness. They would soon learn that it meant nothing of the sort. Back on Terrace, Lieutenant Dravik and Zira continued their investigation. Dravik's instincts told him the human was near, observing, waiting, and learning. This is not random, he repeated. They are patient. They watch and learn. And when the time comes, we will see what humans are truly capable of. Zira shivered. I do not like it. One being, causing this much chaos. It feels wrong. Unnatural. Dravik placed a clawed hand on her shoulder. It is natural for humans to be clever, and that is what we must respect. Underestimating them has been our greatest mistake. As night fell across the galaxy, Kale disappeared into the shadows, leaving only subtle disruptions and whispers of fear in his wake. The aliens celebrated their fragile peace, unaware that one human had begun to challenge the very notion of safety and security. The ripple of fear was spreading, small yet undeniable. Fleets would be more cautious. Officers would second-guess orders. The galaxy would start to remember what humans were capable of, and Kale, hidden, patient, and clever, would continue his work. The war may have ended for the galaxy, but for the humans, especially Kale, it was only the beginning. They had survived. They had adapted, and they had learned that sometimes one human in the shadows could change the fate of worlds. The galaxy had begun to notice something unusual. Small disturbances had escalated into undeniable patterns, and whispers of a surviving human had spread from the edges of space to the council chambers. Alien leaders could no longer dismiss the possibility. One human, clever, patient, and elusive, was influencing events in ways they could not predict. Kale moved silently from system to system. His operations were precise, calculated, and careful. He did not seek destruction. He sought understanding, influence, and proof that humans were more than just warriors. They were thinkers, planners, and problem solvers. Every mission he undertook taught him more about the aliens' strengths and weaknesses, their assumptions and fears. On the planet Orvis, a council of regional governors gathered to discuss the growing disturbances. Flags and banners of multiple alien species filled the chamber, each representative wary of the others. The topic of humans had long been a historical curiosity, stories of bravery, cunning, and sometimes cruelty, but now it was immediate and dangerous. Councillor Virel addressed the assembly. We are no longer dealing with mere rumors. Reports of anomalies in several star systems indicate deliberate actions by an entity capable of bypassing our most advanced defenses. There is only one explanation, a human. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some representatives whispered in disbelief. Others exchanged worried glances. Many had been taught since childhood that humans were extinct. Yet the evidence was clear. The humans had returned, and even one of them could be a threat beyond imagination. Councillor Virel continued. We must prepare, but carefully. This human is not merely destructive. He observes. He learns, he adapts. If we underestimate him, we risk more than we can imagine. Meanwhile, Kale watched from the shadows of a hidden asteroid station near Orvis. He observed the Council's communications channels, noting the reactions of individual members. Fear, caution, doubt, all were present, but most were still unwilling to believe the full scope of human capability. That was the advantage he had, patience. The galaxy believed humans were gone. They were learning, slowly, that humans were far from ordinary. Kale's next objective was subtle but strategic. He targeted supply routes used by multiple systems. Without direct confrontation, he disrupted communications and transportation schedules, creating confusion among officers and administrators. Ships arrived late, messages were delayed, and officials could not pinpoint the cause. Every reaction he observed taught him more about their habits and weaknesses. On the bridge of the flagship Aurora, Commander Rethal frowned at the reports coming in. This is beyond coincidence, he muttered. Systems, schedules, personnel, all disrupted simultaneously. And yet there is no visible cause. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Celia, shook her head. Could it be a single human? We've underestimated them for too long. Rethal considered this carefully. Perhaps. But if it is one human, then we must recognize their strength. Observation alone has caused chaos across multiple systems. Imagine what humans could do if fully engaged. In the council, Virel convened a smaller, secret meeting. We need someone who can understand humans, she said. Someone who can anticipate their moves, predict their actions, and respond intelligently. I will lead this effort personally. Some councillors protested. Councillor Virel, one human cannot influence so many systems alone. It must be a larger force. Virel's eyes narrowed. Do not underestimate them. One human is enough to change the balance of power. One human, acting patiently, can reshape events without ever showing himself fully. We must treat this as an intelligent, strategic opponent. Kale observed her reaction from his hidden location. He noted her intelligence, her ability to analyze situations, and her willingness to act decisively. She would be a worthy adversary, or perhaps one day an ally. For now she was a challenge, and he relished the subtle dance of strategy that was beginning. He activated a communications relay near a minor colony on the planet Cyrell. Without sending a message, he manipulated signals to create the illusion of miscommunication among the Council's forces. Patrols were delayed, supplies arrived at incorrect coordinates, and automated defense drones hesitated at critical moments. These were small disturbances, but they were enough to demonstrate human ingenuity without causing permanent harm. Observers aboard the colony ships whispered among themselves. "It is impossible," one said. "No single being could control all of this. Humans are clever," another replied. "We should not have assumed they were extinct. Their ability to adapt, it is beyond what we expected." Cal recorded these reactions carefully. Every doubt, every whisper, every reassessment of assumptions strengthened his understanding of the galaxy and its inhabitants. Humans had survived for centuries by observing, adapting, and striking strategically when the moment was right. Now he was teaching the galaxy the same lesson. Never underestimate a human. In a secure council chamber on Orves, Virel analyzed reports from multiple sectors. "He is methodical," she said. "Careful, patient, observant. This is not a reckless human. This is a strategist," her assistant nodded. "Yes, counselor. We have underestimated the potential of a single human. And now, we must respond with intelligence of our own." Kale listened in silence, unseen, noting the measures they were taking. They were cautious but not yet fully aware of the depth of his abilities. Their fear was growing, but it was not yet panic. That was the perfect balance for him. He moved next to a small communication hub near the planet Trivana. Using subtle interference, he caused minor delays in information transfer between fleets. Officers scrambled to understand the errors, suspecting sabotage but unable to trace its source. Every confusion, every misstep was evidence of human ingenuity at work. From his hidden vantage point, Kale allowed himself a small smile. One human had begun to influence multiple systems, not through brute force but through clever observation and subtle intervention. The galaxy's leaders were beginning to reconsider everything they thought they knew. On Terrace, Lieutenant Dravik and Zira discussed the growing disturbances. "This human," Dravik said, "is no ordinary survivor. He is changing how the galaxy operates without attacking directly. We must be careful. We must think like him if we hope to anticipate his moves." Zira frowned. "It is unnerving. One being, invisible, patient, clever. I have never seen anything like it." Dravik nodded. "That is why we must respect him. Underestimating humans has always been a mistake. We cannot make the same one again." Meanwhile, Kale prepared for his next observation. He had noted patterns in the Council's reactions, patterns in fleet movements, and patterns in human assumptions about him. Every calculation, every decision reinforced his understanding of both the aliens' and humanity's strengths. Patience was his ally, observation was his weapon, and subtle influence was his strategy. As night fell across the galaxy, Kale paused to look at the stars. "They think they understand me," he whispered. "They think they can prepare for what they do not see. But humans survive through understanding, through patience, through thinking beyond the obvious. And they will learn slowly, but they will learn." On Orves, Virel ended her meeting. "We are dealing with more than just a survivor. We are dealing with a human mind, one that observes, adapts, and anticipates. This is not war, not yet, but it will shape every decision we make in the coming months." Kyle moved to a distant observation point. His influence had begun to ripple through the galaxy, and he knew that the human's presence would no longer be ignored. Even one human could change the perception of entire civilizations. He had already proven it, and yet Kale was only beginning. Observation and subtle influence were tools, but strategy required patience, timing, and intelligence. The aliens had begun to recognize his presence, but they did not understand the full scope of what humans could accomplish. The ripple of fear had become a wave of uncertainty. Fleets and councils hesitated. Officers second-guessed orders. Leaders reconsidered alliances. The galaxy's belief in permanent peace had been shaken by one human who moved through shadows, unseen but undeniable. Kyle smiled faintly. The galaxy was learning what humanity had always known. Survival was not just about strength. It was about intelligence, patience, and the courage to act when the moment was right. And humans, no matter how few, had always possessed those qualities in abundance. The galaxy may have celebrated peace, but Kale knew better. The true test was just beginning, and when it came, humanity would be ready. The galaxy had changed. Small disturbances had grown into widespread unease, and rumors of a single human capable of influencing fleets, colonies, and councils had reached even the most distant worlds. Aliens whispered of clever tactics, subtle manipulations, and impossible maneuvers, all carried out by one human who refused to be seen. Counselor Virel had grown uneasy. She had studied reports from multiple sectors, observed fleet movements, and analyzed communications patterns. The evidence was overwhelming. This human, Kale as some records suggested, was not merely surviving. He was orchestrating events in a way that challenged centuries of alien assumptions. "We have underestimated humanity for too long," Virel said quietly to her closest advisors. "One human has disrupted our fleets, our communications, and our understanding of strategy. We cannot ignore this. We must respond, but carefully. We must respect what we face." The advisors nodded, some visibly shaken. Even the most experienced generals and strategists could not deny the intelligence displayed by this lone human. "But how do we counter someone who does not fight openly?" one asked. Virel considered this carefully. "We cannot, not yet. We can only observe, adapt, and prepare. If we attempt to attack without understanding, we will only play into his hands. We must think as he thinks." Far away, Kale moved silently aboard his hidden vessel. He had spent months observing, analyzing, and influencing. Every action was deliberate, designed to teach the aliens a lesson without causing permanent harm. They had believed humans were extinct. They had assumed extinction meant weakness. And now, slowly, they were realizing how wrong they were. Kale reviewed the communications he had intercepted from the Council. Virel was smart, cautious, and relentless. She would be a worthy opponent or ally when the time came. He smiled faintly. Humans did not seek conflict for its own sake. They sought understanding, influence, and the chance to shape events in ways that ensured survival and balance. His next objective was the planet Lyra, a strategic hub for multiple alien fleets. Kale's plan was simple but effective. Subtle interference in communications and logistics, enough to create confusion but not enough to cause permanent damage. He wanted the aliens to recognize that humans were capable, not reckless. As he activated his devices, minor disruptions spread through Lyra's fleet command systems. Patrol schedules were misaligned, supply shipments arrived at slightly different coordinates, and automated defense systems hesitated for seconds that felt like hours to the officers in charge. Every reaction was observed, every mistake recorded. Commander Rathal, now increasingly aware of the human's presence, clenched his jaw. "This is no accident," he muttered. "Every system we have tested, every patrol we've sent, it is as if someone predicts our moves before we make them." One human. "It cannot be," Lieutenant Celia shook her head. "We cannot underestimate him any longer. He is intelligent, patient, and unpredictable. If we do not respect that, we risk everything." Meanwhile, Kale watched from a hidden position above the planet. He knew the disruption would cause minimal inconvenience but maximum awareness. Officers and leaders alike would begin to understand that humans could act without detection, influence without aggression, and achieve results without brute force. This was humanity's greatest strength, subtlety combined with intelligence. Across the galaxy, Virel gathered her council once more. "The human is no longer a rumor," she said. "He has proven his presence. He has shown that a single human can influence multiple systems, create uncertainty, and force even the most careful strategists to reconsider their actions. We must acknowledge this openly, but also prepare to adapt." One counselor, an elder with scales that shimmered in the light, spoke hesitantly.
"You mean?"
"We must respect a human. A single human has achieved more than we thought possible." Virel nodded. "Yes, respect is not weakness. It is awareness. We cannot ignore what we do not understand, and we do not yet understand him fully." Kale, Hidden and observing the Council's reactions allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The galaxy had begun to learn the lesson that humans had always known. Survival was not about numbers, strength, or size. It was about intelligence, patience, and creativity. One human, if clever and cautious, could change the perception of entire civilizations. But Kale was not finished. Observation and subtle influence were only the beginning. The true impact of humanity would be felt when he revealed, carefully, that humans were not just clever, they were capable of shaping the galaxy in ways the aliens had never imagined. He selected a group of sympathetic alien factions he had observed over time. These factions had shown signs of curiosity about humans and a willingness to question established narratives. Kale reached out discreetly, sending cryptic messages that demonstrated intelligence, caution, and an understanding of galactic politics. The responses were cautious but intrigued. Some aliens had grown frustrated with the Council's rigid control. Others had seen firsthand the anomalies Kale had caused. All began to realize that humans were not extinct, and that their influence could be a force for balance, not chaos. Meanwhile, Viral focused her attention on tracking Kale more precisely. She understood his methods, his patience, and his goals, yet she also recognized his restraint. He was not reckless nor unnecessarily violent. He acted with purpose, intelligence, and strategy. "This human is more than a threat," she said. "He is a mind we can learn from, and perhaps, in time, work with." Kale's presence was finally acknowledged openly across the galaxy. Reports of his subtle interventions, his ability to manipulate systems without detection, and his understanding of alien strategy forced leaders to reconsider their assumptions. Humans were no longer seen as extinct relics. They were clever, patient, and capable of influencing events in ways that could not be ignored. For Kale, this acknowledgement was not victory, it was opportunity. He had achieved influence, recognition, and understanding, but his greatest power lay in patience, observation, and the ability to act when the moment was right. The galaxy had begun to respect humans. That was the first step toward a future where humanity would not be underestimated. In a private chamber on Lyra, Kale allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. "They believe they understand me," he whispered. "They do not. Humans survive not by fighting blindly, but by thinking, observing, and acting at the right time. They will remember this lesson. And humanity will never be forgotten." Viral, in her council chambers, reviewed the final reports from the past months. Her expression was thoughtful. "One human has done what entire fleets could not," she said aloud. "They have reminded the galaxy that intelligence, patience, and courage can surpass sheer numbers. Perhaps we have judged humans too quickly for too long. The galaxy had celebrated peace too soon. They had assumed humans were gone, that extinction meant weakness, and that shadows held no danger. Kale had proven them wrong. One human had reminded the galaxy that survival was only the beginning, and that cleverness, courage, and patience could never be underestimated. Kale moved once more into the shadows, unseen but influential. The ripple of fear and respect he had created continued to spread. Leaders reconsidered strategies, fleets moved with caution, and even ordinary citizens began to whisper of humans once thought extinct. The galaxy now understood something vital. Humanity was patient, clever, and always ready. They had survived countless challenges, adapted to impossible situations, and proven that one human could change the perception of entire civilizations. Kyle smiled faintly. His work was not done, but the foundation was laid. The galaxy had learned that humans could not be ignored. They could influence, adapt, and survive in ways no one had anticipated. And one human, moving through shadows with intelligence and purpose, had become the reminder the galaxy would never forget. The war may have ended for the galaxy. Peace may have been declared. But the true story of humanity was only beginning. One human, patient, clever, and unseen, had shown the galaxy that the shadows could hold not fear, but power. Shadows could hold knowledge, strategy, and courage. Shadows could hold the future. And in the quiet of the stars, Kyle disappeared once more into the darkness, leaving the galaxy changed, aware, and forever reminded that humans could not be forgotten, underestimated, or ignored. The shadows had become light not through force, but through intelligence, patience, and the undeniable spirit of humanity.